Hi, my name's Mike Haig, and I'm a senior here at Texas Christian University. I'm a political science major and a business and communication studies minor, and I'm in Dr. Greg Stevens' organizational management class on Wednesday evenings. I'm here to talk a little bit today about the idea of true north principles. These true north principles are leadership qualities that I believe everyone should have, that transcend time, and that really only certain individuals have been able to display through time. One example of an individual that's been able to do this is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, who was president from 1933 to 1945. If you're not familiar with this era, you might not know a little bit what it was about. For example, the Great Depression, which was America's greatest economic recession of all time, as well as World War II, which is America's, up to that point, probably one of their greatest international conflicts of all time that really rung home in American soil. FDR had to overcome all these battles, whether on domestic soil or abroad, and push the American people toward a greater vision, a greater struggle to overcome those and make America what it is today, the great nation that we are. He had to have something to do that. He had to have some sort of leadership quality, not just a management quality, but a true leadership qualities. Let's not forget even Mr. FDR himself was riddled by a wheelchair because of a polio case that he had. He had limited use of his legs. So not only did he have problems in the government, he had problems himself. And he overcame all these challenges because of his true north principles. So what are these principles that are so essential to the president, as well as individuals in business, as well as individuals at universities and anyone in the world? First, a vision for the future. FDR realized that he must not simply look at today's game plan or the next days or the next month, but look long term. Look to the future. Realize that everything is encompassing, not just today, not just for the next month, but in the long run. This means with the war, he had to look long term. He had to realize that the economic recession might not be taken care of with one simple government act. It might not be taken care of because one simple economic plan got enacted, but over time things could improve. It's not that easy, and it's hard. As Americans, we love to look to the short term. We love to look to the quick fix, the things that make our lives easier here and now. But we must make sure that we look to the future because that's where the true gains can be made. Next, we're going to talk about strategic communication. What does this mean? Does this simply mean being a great speaker? Not necessarily. There are many people that can be great speakers but don't know how to apply that to their audience or how to apply that in more interpersonal situations. So for example, FDR knew how to talk to his advisors on an individual level based on what they needed to hear and what they wanted to hear and what they maybe didn't need to hear. When it came to the war, he couldn't be too blunt to the American people, but at the same time he had to have the strength and courage to tell them what the situation really was and what Americans needed to do to overcome the battles. On the domestic front with the Great Depression, he needed to talk to his advisors about the economic issues and make sure he was talking to them on the right level, on the right page, getting the information he needed and dispersing the information appropriately. This isn't just being a great noble speaker. This is really understanding how to speak to individuals and groups on particular levels that are much more particular than bigger group problems. Additionally, great leaders with these true north principles never let obstacles come in their way. They realize that they have the power to overcome anything. Some small problem or some small gap in the road isn't going to let them sit back and say, well, I just can't overcome this. Look at FDR when he came into office. He had one of the greatest economic recessions of all time, and within 5 to 8 years he had one of the greatest world wars of all time as well. Those are tough issues. Sometimes you can't just sit back and say somebody else will take care of it. You have to do it yourself. You have to motivate others around you to overcome those obstacles because you know what? Somebody's got to do it. Next, I'm going to talk about a deep understanding of man. This means not just merely feeling sorry for your brothers and sisters, but truly empathizing with them and realizing what humans need and what they must have to accomplish the goals ahead of them. Sometimes this might mean being a shoulder to cry on, and sometimes this might mean putting your elbow in your coworker's side and saying, hey man, we got to get this done. You need some motivation and I'm here to give it to you. FDR certainly had to do this. How many people probably wanted to give up during the crisis, both on the domestic and foreign soil? He was there. He was the one that said, you know what? I understand you. I realize where the problems are. Here's how to motivate you. Additionally, he had to sit at home or be in the White House and say, there are millions of American families that are suffering right now. There are millions of our men and women that are struggling because of this war, that are dying overseas, and he had to empathize with them and realize that, you know what, sometimes you have to just take a step back and realize that as human beings, we're all in this together. It's a very, very, very important issue because sometimes people kind of get caught up in themselves and forget about others. Finally, you've got to have a humble confidence. This doesn't mean being too overconfident. This doesn't mean being cocky or thinking you're the greatest. But it does mean being able to step up to the plate, believe in yourself, and tackle issues as they come at you. FDR, again, certainly had this. He realized the problems in front of him, but at the same time, he knew he could take care of them. He knew that he had the people around him and he had the internal strength to overcome his personal and the America's issues. They were huge issues and he realized that we could do it. He inspired the American people and he had a deep pride in himself that it was his responsibility to help overcome these. So as a student at Texas Christian University, how can I apply these? Or as you, the watcher who might be a plumber, who might be the CEO of a major corporation, who might be America's next great president, how can you take these principles that transcend time, these principles that men like Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, those types of guys, how did they apply them to their life? And how can you do it yourself? And how have I done it as a student? Well, first, a vision for the future. This is pretty simple. This means maybe as a student, I'm not looking at tomorrow's little tiny homework assignment. I'm realizing there's bigger issues at hand in my classes. For instance, a test within 2 weeks. I got to make sure I study for that. Or maybe if I'm the president of a major organization on campus, I'm looking long term. I'm thinking about the greater good of the organization, not some personal gains I can make or some quick fixes that the organization can obtain. This is very important as students as well as businessmen who are looking towards the long-term effects. Not profits for this evening or tomorrow or what we can do today, and especially not trying to do unethical measures to attain those, but thinking long-term with ethical premises. Strategic communication. How can I do that as a student or anyone else in the world? That means that I need to realize that my business partner, when I get out of college, or maybe my group partner in a group project, might not respond to the same pressures and demands that other people do. This means certain types of motivations might be needed for this person as opposed to someone else in the world. This means maybe I do need to get stern with someone in a group project and say, hey, you've been really letting us down, we really need your help. Or someone else who maybe has been working hard, just not getting things done, say, hey, I realize you need some help here, I'm here to help you, what do you need? You've been doing a great job, let's make sure we get this done. This communication really helps not only in the workplace, in the business world, and as a student, but with your family as well. It really does help you overcome bridges, any problems you're having with family issues at the home or even as a student living long distance away from home. Knowing how to relate to your mother who might be missing you a little bit, but realizing that you're a student and that you need some freedom, making sure that you can obtain kind of a little bit of an understanding with her and your parents and your brothers and sisters. Next, never view obstacles as too large or difficult to overcome. How many times as college students have we sat back and say, I've got 3 tests this week and I can't do it? Well, guess what? You've got to do it. It's your duty as a student. It's your responsibility. And an organization on campus, maybe you say, God, we've got this huge project coming up. Maybe it's a philanthropy event and I just don't think we can get it done. People aren't cooperating. You can't look at problems like that and just give up. You've got to make sure that you put your entire effort into making sure things get done, rallying those around you, and putting your best effort in. Because at the end of the day, if you can't look back and say, I gave my best effort to overcome those obstacles, then you really didn't do your job and you really were pretty irresponsible about that job as well. Second to last, a deep understanding of man. This might seem out there when it comes to being a student or comes to being someone just in the business world, but it really does relate. For instance, I've got to realize that other people are different than myself. That some people come from different backgrounds, whether socioeconomic, racial, religious, even gender. Those things are different. I need to realize that I've got to have an understanding of other individuals, how they work, what they need, and how I can help them. This will help me infinitely in the long term, help me become a better person, not just in the business place or at school, but just overall enriching my life as a human being and making myself the best person possible. Lastly, a humble confidence. As a student, I can't think I'm on top of the world. I haven't accomplished really anything yet. It's up to me to make sure that I get my studies done, I get my jobs on campus done, and I go tackle the real world, and I have a confidence in doing it, but guess what? I've still got a lot of work to do. I'm not king of the world yet, but at the same time, I've got to realize that I can overcome anything, and with my power and my work ethic, I can overcome anything if I want to. This is a really great aspect to have, especially graduating college when you might not have the best job in the world. You might be starting at the bottom, working your way up. At the same time, you got to have confidence that you can do the job in front of you, and you will eventually be working your way up to upper management CEO positions. FDR really did take these principles at hand and put them into the real world with the United States, whether on the domestic with the Great Depression or on the international front with World War II. On the other hand, looking at FDR as some mythical figure as a president and thinking that I can't apply these to my life is certainly wrong. These are principles that anyone can use in their life, whether they are students like myself, whether they're parents leading a family, or whether the CEOs of major corporations. These are principles that everyone should work to obtain, everyone should practice, and everyone should realize that they're not going to be perfect at first, and some might need more work than others. I hope you have a little bit of better understanding about these True North principles, and maybe from this you can apply them to your life and make your own life better as well as those around you. Thanks for your time, and make sure you take these out in the real world and make the world a better place.